Hello YouTube. I've been live for 14 hours playing today's patch. I played so much Illari. I haven't given you my honest thoughts on today's patch. I have a main channel video where I just showed the befores and afters and I read the dev comments, but I haven't given you what I think of each thing. So let's start with D.Va. D.Va's boosters cooldown has been reduced from 4 to 3.5 seconds, and the pilot is now damage immune for 0.4 seconds while ejecting. So boosters used to be 5 seconds. D.Va wasn't played so much. She got buffed to 3 seconds, and then that was OP. 3-second booster mobility was insane. Then it got nerfed to 4 seconds as a middle ground for the last, like, what, year or two? Back down to 3.5. I do not understand this change. I don't think she needed it. I already thought D.Va was A tier and a really strong choice. This makes her even better. The eject part where she's now immune is mostly so, like, a lot of times when D.Vas get demeched, they can get hit by splash damage from Azaria. Azaria with secondary fire during the demech, and as soon as she gets out, she would already take, like, a chunk of damage. A lot of times in Overwatch 1, you would pulse bomb the demeching D.Va as a tracer just to guarantee the kill on the baby D.Va so she doesn't remech. You don't do that as much anymore in Overwatch 2, or you helix rocket it as soldier as they demech. These are 2 buffs to D.Va. I actually think D.Va is really good after playing against her all day today as well. It's also really good against Illari. D.Va is one of the few heroes that can eat the captive sun outright. D.Va can also eat the heals from the pylon. You can't eat the pylon projectile itself, but it eats like the every time it pulsates. So these changes, I would say she's like one of the higher end choices, especially in ranked play. Doomfist, I think he needed buffs for sure. I saw a lot of Dooms today. Seismic Slam buff to increase his uptime on mobility, 7 to 6 seconds. Doesn't seem like a lot on paper, but it does matter quite a bit in terms of him getting more overhealth, because every time he slams, he gets a bit of overhealth, right? And the fact that this is up at a higher frequency increases his tankiness, and the power block now reducing things from stuck projectiles is also a twofold buff. He survives longer and he gets more overhealth. Back then, Cassidy, Echo, and Tracer are very common DPS choices in the high ranks, and a lot of high-level Doom players thought Doom was ass because if you get stuck by a Tracer pulse bomb, you're pretty much dead. You get stuck by Echo stickies while you're blocking, you just take like 200 damage. Same with the Hinder nade before it was nerfed. So this is actually a big buff for power block in those matchups, which are very common high elo matchups. So this helps, but Doom is still a hard hero to play right now because we'll get to Orisa. Orisa's actually really good right now. Orisa plays decently into Doom, can annoy him with the spear. Sombra in her current iteration still exists. She can just stay invisible and hold her hands out and hack. Although I will say, Doom kind of does play pretty well into Illari. Illari's a bit vulnerable to dive, and I kind of got owned by Doom a lot today. Maybe because I didn't have a proper support line. Maybe if I play Illari plus Brig, it would be a little bit more tolerable, but like, if Doom dove me, I was pretty much cooked. I don't do enough damage to kill him outright, although if my pylon lives, then I can survive long enough, but like, I mean, I'm not supposed to be able to straight up kill a tank in most cases, but I still think Doom is a little weak in the high level, but this is a nice move in the right direction for Doom. Okay, Orisa. This is actually a big buff. What this means, with damage fall off range increase from 15 to 20 meters, basically means your damage tapers off and does less damage the further away you are from your target. Basically, it means if you're 15 meters away from the target previously, and you move further back, a further distance away, your damage starts scaling down. That scaling down won't start until you're 20 meters away. So like, you'll be doing full damage at the closer mid-range before it starts tapering off. So this is really good at the mid-range. If you land a spear against the wall, you still do full damage on your projectiles, and you can confirm a kill before they're broken out of the stun. This is what she was in like season 1 and 2 when she was really good. When they nerfed this, it kind of killed Orisa at the mid-range, which is why she wasn't picked a lot at the high levels past that point. But this brought it back, which helps that spear combo a lot. And then Fortify getting more health, so she's extra tanky. However, there is an overall game change where armor health damage reduction is now additive with other sources and has a maximum cap of 50. This was actually a different calculation they're doing. It will smooth out some of the spikes and actually even out this Fortify buff. So this is kind of a neutral change based on how like her armor interacts with damage reduction. So this is neutral, but this augmented fusion driver is good. She got buffed late last season and mid-season last season as well. I actually think Orisa's a pretty solid tank again. I think in low rank she was always good because she's super unkillable, but she was not played for the last few seasons in high elo at all until now. Ramattra was a top pick, one of the top tanks in ranked play. They actually changed the block where it now reduces damage from stuck projectiles. This is also the same thing. You can block an annihilation, block a nemesis. Same thing as Doom. That's a big buff in those matchups. To compensate, they're just increasing the cost of his ult. It still builds pretty fast. Ramattra's pretty much unchanged. Ramattra's still a great tank. Doomfist. Base movement ground deceleration increased to match standard heroes movement. They've got a space there. What this means, all tanks in the game have a tank passive. The tank passive means, did I say Doomfist? Sorry, I called Sigma Doomfist. Tanks have a passive where CC is reduced on them and they have reduced knockback. so they don't get bonked away as far. They're a bit like heavier, and they can take more knockback. So I was gonna say I got ahead of myself. When Doomfist used to punch Sigma, he would actually fly like a normal hero, because he was the only tank in the game that didn't have knockback resistance based on something about his floatier movement controls. So now Sigma is aligned with all the other tanks, which is what he should have been 10 months ago when they introduced Overwatch 2 and tank passes, where all tanks are supposed to be, you know, have less knockback. He doesn't get booped away as far now. He's more sturdier and stable on the ground. That's that change. That's fine. Sigma's still good on the maps he's good on. If you guys don't know what maps he's good on for the newer players, Circuit Royale, Havana, Junkertown. Those are probably his top 3 maps. I know he floats, which is why I guess he had a unique property where he just wasn't getting knockback resistance. Even though he floats, he's still a tank, so he should have the tank passive. Understandable. Winston. They're basically the secondary fire is the charged zap attack, not the main Tesla cannon. It's the secondary shot where you can snipe the sniper monkey. Secondary fire charge time reduced from 1.2 to 1 second. It only takes 1 second to charge to full now instead of 1.2. So it's slightly faster to charge to full, which is good if you're going for like a single snipe to finish someone off. If you are trying to spam the thing, the recovery time is increased from half a second to 0.75 seconds. Every time you fired, it would take half a second before you can start channeling the next one. Now there's a longer delay before you can like charge it up again. So top part is a buff, so you can just do a single snipe. That's good. It's a nerf to the playstyle where you just sit there in the back and just poke, because it's longer to charge, it's like a slower attack speed, if that makes any sense. This won't change Winston's viability overall. This is pretty mild. There's actually other changes here that I'll get to that probably make Winston harder to play. If you guys don't pay attention to the NA leaderboards or the top 500 leaderboards, Winston was a top tank by the end of last season, literally like a few days ago. I think Diva, Sig, and Ramatra were the next closest ones. They're all great tanks to play, but Winston was #1 because of the dive comp. The most common comp you'd see in ranked was Winston plus Tracer, plus Ana plus Brig, and then the other DPS is a mix of Sombra or Echo. Bastion is a great hero to destroy Winston. Bastion received a lot. These are all buffs, by the way. You see all these bullet points? A36 tactical grenade. A lot of people just use this to rocket jump for himself. Maximum explosion fall off. It doesn't taper off as hard. It'll actually still do half the damage even at its maximum range, instead of doing 70% less damage. The detonation time means it pops a lot faster. The recoil is adjusted to recover more quickly. The projectile size itself is bigger, and the damage is increased by 15 to 30. It does 130 damage now instead of 115. You can reload way faster in recon form. When you transform, you heal 50 armor health now. This is probably the biggest buff I've noticed when I play him. He's basically 350 health, because you do transform at some point during your rotation. He's a 350 health DPS now. This is insane. And along with the fact that all the other supports have like a raw healing power creep. Lifeweaver heals a lot. This healing pylon from Malari, you can just sit and pocket this Bastion. Bastion is really good, I think. I played against a lot of Bastions today, and Bastions were freaking owning. At the highest levels, there's a lot more ways teams know how to play around Bastion. They wait for his transformation rotation and they engage at the right time, but this is gonna make Bastion even scarier at lower ranks. If Bastion was annoying enough in like bronze to gold, he's gonna be even more annoying now. I can't even imagine. Targeting for artillery, that's its ultimate. Basically, you know, when you like and you like move your crosshair around to pick where to launch it, it basically just means your crosshair moves, like the target moves a lot faster now. Cass, so they're basically reverting Cass back to what he was in like 2 seasons ago. They're increasing his health from 200 to 225. They're saying he's been underperforming, so they're reverting his max health back. I actually think this is a nerf. This might be a buff to the lower ranks, but this is a nerf to high ranks, by the way. 225 is big to be tanky for a lot of breakpoints, but this fall off damage rescaling is really massive. It forces him to have to play close range. If you try to snipe, one of my good friends, Wanted, if you guys don't know who he is, he's a Cass main. Having your damage fall off begin at 35 meters means you're shooting like a wet noodle to the Echoes and Pharahs in the sky. The distance is too far that you're just doing no damage to them. So it's a nerf in that aspect. You have to play like super close range to be relatively effective now. And then the mag grenade is getting nerfed where, like, you know, the max travel time is only 1.5 seconds. And the slow is less, so the makes this thing less bullshit. But in the slow, this is pretty negligible. Yeah, I don't know. I still think this is a playstyle adjustment. I think it is a nerf to the high ranks, but it might be more annoying at the low ranks because people being able to hit the breakpoint of 225 is big. and people weren't reliable enough in the lower ranks to consistently like 3-shot at certain ranges where like it actually mattered as much. But this is a nerf. This is a buff, obviously, but I think this outweighs this one. And then this is just a nerf too. They're saying he's underperforming, so we're buffing stuff like nerf, 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 buff. 1 buff, 3 nerfs. This is still a net nerf. And they're like, yeah, he's still underperforming, so we're just gonna nerf him more. Hanzo. This is a weird quality. This is a weird change where arrow draw progress is no longer preserved while wall climbing. This makes him clunkier to play. So this used to not be the case in Overwatch 1 early Hanzo, and then they changed it in like 2017 or like 2018, where like if you draw your bow and then you wall climb, when you reach the end of your wall climb, you still have full tension and full damage. But now if you draw and you wall climb, you'll lose all your tension and charge. This just makes him clunkier to play. I feel like they could have nerfed other parts of Hanzo without making him feel worse for Hanzo players, to be honest with you. Hanzo players are going to be annoyed by this. I mean, I'm not a Hanzo player, so I'm not going to like complain about it because I just get doinked and logged by Hanzos all the time. But I'm a fan of like the game being fun for everybody because, you know, you want to look at the game from a perspective of every type of player as best as you can. Like giving a game balancer, you have to juggle a lot of variables. I always think touching fluidity and how a hero feels and flows is a big no-no because you want the hero to be fun and viable, and there's other ways to nerf the viability because he's really good right now, like nerf the power without making him feel worse. Clunkiness, fluidity. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Any Hanzo players know what I mean with this being like an annoying feeling. Soldier 76, he got super buffed near the end of season 5, so they're just tuning it back slightly. This is fine. He still has 19 damage per bullet, which is good. The Helix was doing 130 at this because it's 90 explosion, 40 direct. Now it's 80 explosion, 40 direct, so it's 130 versus it's 120 damage now. That's fine. And the visors just slightly costs more to account for the extra damage you're doing per bullet. That's fine. Soldier's still a pretty solid hit scan. Sombra is getting a rework. If you guys don't know, they announced a Sombra rework like half a year ago. They're still working on it. This is a temporary fix, temporary tuning where EMP costs more and it no longer destroys Lifeweaver's Tree of Life. That's a big buff to Lifeweaver. Playing Sombra was super meta in the high ranks, and it just means you can't play Lifeweaver at high ranks because you just Sombra just kills the Tree of Life. Okay, Torb got a lot of buffs here actually. So the weapon swap time, this is whatever. Swapping from your gun to your hammer, being a little quicker, that's whatever. Rivet gun primary fire recovery time, this is basically attack speed. This is a buff. Like it's easy to think about it this way. A lot of people, when they look at the terms like recovery time, they're like, what does that mean? If we just like look at 0.5, half a second, it means you fire a bullet every half second. And now it means like you can fire even more, faster than half a second. So it just shoots a bit faster, 0.48 seconds. So it'll be like, it's basically your fire rate. The time between your bullets is a shorter time in between, so it just goes faster. Honestly, I feel like Overwatch should just use stuff like attack speed. I think that's more intuitive. It's always just worded as recovery time, and it's like a lot of people don't know how to interpret this. Like if you read a lot of patch notes, you'd get it, but like it's my job as a content creator to be able to like explain and kind of like, you know, break down patch notes and things like that. And like I feel like this is interpretation. You have to find ways to word. It's part of the job to be able to like change things to make it a bit more understanding. But in any case, I'm just rambling about random things I think about here. Forge hammer, swing recovery time, same thing. The attack speed means you're whacking your hammer every 0.6 seconds instead of 0.75 seconds. Means you hammer faster now. This makes, they remember they nerfed the turret like last season because they wanted like remove the newbiness of it because like the turret was just hard carrying Torb at a lot of ranks. And then adding more power to like Torb himself and making it less about his turret, which is fine for the high ranks. The turret's still kind of annoying, but it's just not as annoying as it was. Because the turret kind of just was a 6th player. It's a 6v5 with Torb in probably gold and under. This is good. This shows your Torb skills more, so I like that. Ana nerfs. Nerf and buff. The damage and healing per projectile is being reduced from 75 to 70. So you can still 3-shot 200 HP heroes. 70, 70, 70 is 210. That's fine. This will nerf the Ana versus Tracer matchup. A lot of times as Ana, you'd be able to 2-shot the Tracer if she's not paying attention. Good Tracers would be able to recall before they take the full dot. 70 and 70 is not enough to kill a Tracer anymore, so that nerfs Ana versus Tracer. This also is a nerf because Cass is back at 225 HP. You can't 3-tap Cass anymore. That's annoying for Ana players too. So I mean, this is a nerf. I still think she's pretty good. The unscoped projectile size is going to be thicker now. 0.1 thickness increase, like a 10. Basically there's a base size for the projectile with the hit box or whatever of your bullet, and it's just gonna be 10% thicker. Brig, barrier shield. So the shield health's being reduced back to 250. Okay, that's fine, negligible. And the rally ultimate cost is being increased by 6%. This is pretty negligible too. Actually, this is not negligible. 250 to 300 is, it'll make a difference in some scenarios, but Brig was a #1 support choice. It was Ana Brig, believe it or not, as the top 2 supports in high elo by the end of season 5. So they basically decided to nerf Ana and Brig just like that. KarQ. Okay, so the protection Suzu, the knockback was removed. I'm a support player, so I'm inherently biased. I always thought it was funny when I knocked back like a freaking Junker Queen off the map, where I knocked back I booped people off the map with this knockback. As much as I love it when it happens to me, because I am a KarQ player, I never thought it was necessary. She never needed this. The protection Suzu was such a loaded ability. It does a million things. It already cleanses, which is the most powerful thing. This is such an extra bonus. Plus, in the 1v1s, when you like flank as KarQ and you're taking a 1v1 up close, you Suzu yourself, slightly bumps them if they're really close, which like messes up their aim. It heals you, makes you invulnerable, and because you're invulnerable for 1 second, your support passive kicks in as KarQ and you start healing yourself. Like, KarQ is a crazy 1v1 hero, so removing the knockback, that's fine. I think that's good. That's very fair. The healing itself is also being reduced from 50 to 40. That's also fine, but it now heals for an additional 30 health when cleansing a negative effect. What's a negative effect? Ash Dynamite, Anti-Nade, the new Illari ultimate, Sun-marked, or whatever the hell you call it. Sunburn? I'm gonna call it Sunburn from now on. Sunstruck is what it's called. I'm calling it Sunburn from now on. That's so much easier to remember. Can we all collectively just call it a Sunburn? A Discord Orb is a negative effect, that's right. Just start saying it in your games. It'll trickle down to everybody, okay? We'll start it here. Bleeds from Junker Queen. So this means if you're flanking a hero in the backline and you heal yourself, you only get 40. But if you play with your team and your team gets dinged by like a big anti, you'll heal 80 to everybody, which buffs it in certain scenarios. It just makes KarQ, they're trying to adjust her playstyle so she's not flanking the backline as much, I guess, and playing more with her team to be more deliberate on using it at a negative effect instead of just like using it super casually in all these 1v1s. Now, the kunai change. A lot of people asked me earlier today, what do you think of the kunai change? The body shots being increased from 40 to 45. It fires a lot faster now. It fires every half second. It doesn't look like much on paper, but when you play KarQ, you can feel it. There's something about the feeling of it that just makes it seem super rapid fire. But the crit multiplier, which is the headshot, instead of a 3 times, it's 2.5. So this used to be 40 for the body, 120 to the head. Now it's 45 to the body times 2.5 and 112.5 to the head. So noobs who can't hit headshots will like this change. And I would say noobs, but like even the best players have like a what, 20% headshot accuracy? What is a reasonable KarQ accuracy? I have 181 hours on her now. What is my headshot accuracy? It's fucking 15%. 15% of the time, I'm not even doing headshots. So actually, if 85% of my shots are body shots, it's probably a buff in a lot of cases, but you have to make an argument for breakpoints, like hitting a breakpoint threshold. The breakpoint, the most notable one I mentioned for KarQ. This is a buff for almost everybody except in the Tracer matchup, and Tracer is a super common matchup. Tracer's like the #1 DPS in top 500. Instead of doing 120 plus a melee, a lot of times the Tracer will blink close to me and I headshot melee them instantly when I hide around the corner, I see her, headshot melee. I can no longer do that because it's 112.5 plus melee, and then she'll be able to recall. I've definitely killed like 100 plus Tracers over the past like 10 months with the headshot melee. So that is a nerf in that matchup. It definitely doesn't happen every game, but it's very impactful. You have to do a headshot plus a body shot now, but like if you get hit by one headshot Tracer, good Tracers will recall in time anyways or blink away. It's mostly the fact that you can headshot melee like one go, like you can't react to it. Nerf in one scenario in top 500, but I would say this is a buff everywhere else. So I played a lot of Lifeweaver today. I played a lot against Lifeweaver. I think he went from D tier to B tier at the highest level. I think in like metal ranks, plat and under, I actually think he's like A tier. So the base health is being reduced from 200 to 175. Looks like a nerf, but he gets 50 shield health, blue HP. So he has 225 total HP. Do you guys know how much shield health regenerates at? Pop quiz. Who knows their Overwatch numbers? Why is shield health better than base health? It is 30 HP per second. So he has a support passive, and his shield health will regenerate when he's out of combat. Yes, it regens at a rate of 30 HP, 30 shield health HP per second specifically. So basically, if you get into a little bit of danger, at 225 HP, you're stronger in a lot of breakpoint scenarios. And if you just hide for like a second, you regenerate super fast because your shield health comes back quick. Plus support passive and rejuvenating dash if you dash. So basically, if you're in trouble at 225 HP, you get hit, you get chunked for 100. You just dash once, you heal 50, and then you regenerate the rest of it. Just like you're back to full. So you're a lot more sustainable now without any other external help from other supports. I played a Life Weaver game literally 20 minutes ago. If you guys see, I had the least deaths on my team. I'm actually pretty survivable now. The only problem with him not being as viable at the high ranks is his DPS, his impact in that capacity. There is a reduction of the spread of the volley projectiles, so it actually makes the spread really tight. When you go into a practice range and you look at how much Thorn Volley does, it looks pretty zesty. It's like, holy crap, this guy does a lot of damage. The only problem is, those are stationary targets. When targets are moving, the Thorn Volley doesn't travel fast enough for it to be reliable at the highest levels. There's people move a lot and they strafe a lot. If they get hit by a little bit of Thorn Volley, they're gonna strafe. And it, like, with the way projectile by nature is, you can't predict how they're gonna move entirely, and there's travel time. So the chances of you like fully killing someone who's like aware of you is very low. And the reason why I say he's really good in low ranks is because, I'm gonna be honest, movement is like a big indicator. I can tell if someone's not as refined in their first-person shooter skills. Movement is a big indicator of skill. A lot of like Widowmaker players, when they make like a platinum Widowmaker montage where they're hitting nutty shots, it's because the enemies move like bots. I'm sorry for calling you all bots. I'm just trying to be very, is the word hyperbolic, just to kind of get the point across. Movement is the big thing. The difference between a top 500 moving tracer versus like a, you know, Bob after his 12-hour shift at work, coming in playing on his controller, he's just not Bob. Bob is not bobbing and weaving enough. So like, despite the Thorn Volley like having less spread, I played him enough. My damage numbers are still pretty ass. I played him like 10 games today. People move too much for this to be that reliable. Like, only person I can do a lot with this is like Roadhog, but no one's playing Roadhog right now. Life grip, mobility, lockout duration. It just means they're locked out. They're invulnerable in that bubble for a little longer, I think. Or no, this means they can't use like a movement ability when they're caught in. So sometimes like when you like fly as D.Va and you get pulled, you cancel the grip really quickly because of this short window. It makes it so you don't accidentally escape the life grip. So this wasn't impactful. The healing, the dash, the health is great, but the biggest buff is honestly the Tree of Life. This is a fantastic tempo ultimate. This is like old Rally, or kind of like Brig Rally. 50% of Tree of Life's overhealing is now converted to overhealth, so you literally get an extra 100 HP. I played with Emong in the group earlier today. Both teams had a Tree of Life going, and like it made fights so difficult to burst people down. This Tree of Life is a fantastic ultimate now. This is really, really good. This was a nice change. Problem is, Tree of Life isn't always up, right? When it is up, it's great. But like, is Life Weaver good outside of the Tree of Life? Depends on the player. But this is a fantastic tempo ultimate. It's proactive. You use it aggressively, and you team fight in it, and nobody dies, basically. Depends on how fast you can build this, really. But this is a great ultimate. I don't know what I would rate. Yeah, I still think Life Weaver's B. I didn't change my mind. I still need more time on him. This is still day one, but my initial impressions is he jumped 2 tiers from D to B. So, I mean, that's pretty good. But the only problem in ranked is like being impactful with damage. If we look at Illari later, you can get 10k damage per game as a support or more. I was getting like top damage as Illari, and doing top damage is so impactful because you convert kills a lot easier. Think about it this way. Overhealing is keeping people alive. This is just a numbers game. I can either keep a teammate alive so that we have a chance to kill someone, or I can play Illari and just kill them myself and instantly have an advantage. Make it a 5v4 as Illari because I just 2-tap someone, versus Life Weaver where I have to pull someone. All right, now you have a 20% chance in this position to hopefully get a kill, where I could have just played Illari and done the kill myself. So it's just like, that's the perspective I've looked at it, in which why damage is so impactful, which is why everyone's like, you gotta do damage on support. Mercy's an exception because she makes the other people who do damage hit a new higher tier of damage breakpoints. like Pharah and Echo and Ashe and Sojourn, which like elevates them to get it. So instead of like I move you in this position with life grip and thing, and maybe we get a kill, where it's like they can now like one shot. Like a damage boosted Ashe used to be able to like one shot back in the day. I think they changed the number just a little bit. Lucio's crossfade self. Did you guys hear that bump? Crossfade's self-healing penalty is now reduced from 60 to 0% for the duration of Amp It Up. This basically means previously when he uses his Amp It Up for self-healing, he wasn't actually healing himself to the fullest. He now heals himself more. And now Mercy is the final change, where the damage boost is now 25% for the breakpoint. Yeah, I think Mercy's still good in her niche situations with like Echo, Pharah, and all that stuff, and Ashe even, but like I don't know if I think most Mercy players just want to like have the slingshot, like a movement tech, not have a penalty. With this damage boost, I don't see Mercy with Illari in the game, and this Mercy nerf, I don't see Mercy being a top tier support anymore. I think Lucio's good. I don't see Lifeweaver top tier in the highest ranks, but he's like serviceable. Like Mercy's still serviceable, like probably B tier. Lifeweaver's B tier. Lucio's like A. Kiriko's probably like A. Brig is probably A, Ana's A, Bap is A, maybe like Illari might be A or high S right now, I think. Thanks for listening to my rambling. I will be right back for a second because that bump, I need to see what happened upstairs because something might have fallen. You guys heard that.